She sat alone at her sister's wedding, invisible in her wheelchair, until the ruthless Mafia boss knelt down and asked her to dance. What she didn't know, he knew exactly how her father died, and he was about to help her prove it wasn't an accident. The champagne tower glittered like a tower of broken promises. Alara Mitchell watched it from her wheelchair, positioned, strategically abandoned, near the service entrance of the Grand Meridian Ballroom. Not close enough to the family table to be acknowledged. Not far enough away to escape the pitying glances from guests who pretended not to see her. Her sister's wedding was everything Vanessa had ever wanted. Ice sculptures shaped like swans. 1,000 white roses cascading from the ceiling. A 7-tier cake that cost more than most people's cars. And a groom, Richard Castellano, whose family money could buy anything, including respectability for a scandal like Alara. The girl in the wheelchair. The one who survived. Try not to roll into the cake. Richard's voice boomed across the reception, already slurred from his third scotch. Laughter rippled through the crowd, the kind that wasn't quite genuine, but loud enough to show loyalty. Alara's fingers tightened on the armrests. She'd promised herself she wouldn't react. She'd promised Dad she'd come, be present, show Vanessa that family still mattered despite everything. But Dad wasn't here anymore to keep that promise for. 3 years. 3 years since the car went off Riverside Bridge. 3 years since she'd woken up in a hospital bed, unable to feel her legs, with a nurse telling her that David Mitchell, loving father, honest accountant, her whole world, hadn't made it. Brake failure, the police report said.
Tragique accident.
Alara knew better. The ballroom doors opened with a gust of October wind, and conversations stuttered to silence. Not the polite hush of a toast, but something sharper. Dangerous. Dominic Vero entered like a shadow given human form. He wasn't tall, maybe 6 feet, but he carried himself as if the room needed his permission to exist. Charcoal suit, perfectly tailored. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples. Eyes that looked like they'd seen every human sin and cataloged them alphabetically. Alara had seen his face once, 2 years ago, on the cover of Fortune. The casino king who controls Atlantic City. The article had been more gaps than information. Charitable donations. Legitimate businesses. Rumors of connections that the reporters couldn't quite prove. He wasn't on the guest list. She'd seen the list. Memorized it, actually preparing herself for who she'd need to avoid. Richard's face went pale. He crossed the ballroom in 8 quick strides, his earlier swagger evaporating. Mr. Vero. We didn't expect. I don't usually attend weddings, Dominic said quietly. His voice was smoke and gravel. But when I received information about certain financial irregularities involving your family's import company, I thought it worth making an appearance. The words were soft, but they carried. Guests leaned closer, pretending to adjust napkins or check phones. This is hardly the place, Richard began.
No.
Dominic's gaze swept the room, and for one impossible moment, landed on Alara. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition? No, that was impossible. Then perhaps we should speak Monday. In my office. With your accountants present. He didn't wait for an answer. He simply walked away from Richard, who stood frozen like a man who'd just realized he was standing in quicksand. The string quartet started playing again. The Blue Danube, Vanessa's choice, because she'd always had expensive taste and no imagination. Couples began filtering onto the dance floor. Alara watched them, the way they moved together, weightless, certain. She'd danced once. At her senior prom, wearing a blue dress Mom had saved 3 months to buy, with a boy named Marcus who'd kissed her afterward under the gym's back stairwell. That girl might as well be dead, too. May I have this dance? The voice came from directly in front of her. Alara looked up, into Dominic Vero's face. He wasn't smiling, wasn't pitying. His hand was extended, palm up, as if this were the most natural question in the world. Her throat closed. I can't. I know. He glanced at her wheelchair, then back at her face.
I'm asking anyway.
The ballroom seemed to tilt. Every eye was on them now. Vanessa stood near the head table, her perfect red lips parted in shock. Richard looked like he might be sick. Alara should say no. Should spare them both the embarrassment. Should. Yes, she heard herself whisper. Dominic knelt. Not quickly, not performatively, just smoothly, bringing himself level with her. He took her right hand in his left, placed his right hand gently on the side of her wheelchair, and began to move. He didn't push her the way nurses did, or the pitying volunteers at the rehabilitation center. He moved with her, as if the wheelchair were simply an extension of the dance, his movements precise and deliberate. He guided her in slow, graceful arcs across the marble floor, matching the waltz's rhythm perfectly. Alara forgot to breathe. She could feel the stares, but they'd changed. No longer pity. Something else. Wonder, maybe. Or confusion. She didn't care. For 3 minutes, 3 impossible, crystalline minutes, she wasn't the girl who survived. She was just a woman dancing. When the music ended, Dominic bowed. Actually bowed, like she was royalty instead of broken. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then, even quieter, "Your father was a good man. He deserved better than break failure." Alara's world stopped. Dominic straightened, released her hand, and walked toward the exit. Not toward Richard. Not toward the family tables.
Just out.
She sat there, numb and reeling, as applause broke out around her, uncertain at first, then building. Vanessa's face was a mask of fury. Richard's was pure fear. But Alara barely noticed them. He knew. Dominic, Vero knew about Dad. And that meant everything she'd suspected for 3 years. Every sleepless night, every whispered conversation she'd overheard between Richard and his father, every accidental detail that didn't quite fit, wasn't paranoia. It was murder. The champagne tower glittered. The swans melted slowly, dripping onto white tablecloths. And Alara Mitchell, for the first time since she'd woken up in that hospital bed, felt something she thought she'd lost forever.
Rage.
The garden behind the Grand Meridian was designed for proposals and secret cigarettes, winding stone paths, strategically placed benches, rose bushes that cost more to maintain than most people's mortgages. Alara had wheeled herself out here 20 minutes ago, navigating the accessible ramp while guests whispered behind their champagne flutes. Let them whisper. She needed air, needed space to think about what Dominic Vero had said. Your father was a good man. He deserved better than break failure. Not "I'm sorry for your loss," not "what a tragedy." He'd called it what it was, a lie packaged as an accident. The October wind carried the scent of dying flowers and expensive cigars from the smoking section. Alara pulled her shawl tighter, her mind racing. Why would a casino magnate care about her father? David Mitchell had been an accountant at Henderson and Associates, middle management, respectable but hardly. "I apologize if I caused you discomfort." She spun her wheelchair around. Dominic Vero stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, looking somehow more dangerous in the moonlight than he had under crystal chandeliers. "You didn't," Alara said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You gave me the first real moment I've had in 3 years." He stepped closer, his footsteps silent on the stone path. "Your sister looked ready to murder me. Your brother-in-law looked ready to run." Good, the word came out sharper than she intended. They should be afraid. Something flickered in Dominic's eyes. Interest, maybe. Or recognition. Strong words for a wedding guest. "I shouldn't have come," Alara met his gaze directly. "But I promised my father I'd try to keep the family together. Promises to dead men are harder to break." "Yes," Dominic said quietly. "They are." Silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. He didn't rush to fill it with platitudes or awkward questions.
He just
waited. Alara made a decision. Maybe it was reckless. Maybe it was 3 years of suppressed truth finally demanding air. Maybe it was the way he'd looked at her on that dance floor, not at her disability, but at her. "The brakes didn't fail," she said. Not on their own. Dominic's expression didn't change, but his stillness became absolute. The kind of stillness predators have before they strike. My father found something, Alara continued, words tumbling out now like water through a cracked dam. In Richard's company accounts.
Castellano import / export.
He wouldn't tell me what, said he needed to verify it first, but he was going to the state attorney that Monday. We never made it. The accident was Friday night, Dominic said. Not a question. Riverside Bridge. We were coming back from dinner. Dad's favorite Italian place in Chester. Alara's hands clenched in her lap. The mechanic said the brake line looked worn, but my father had that car serviced 3 weeks earlier. Everything was perfect. Mechanics can be convinced to see what they're paid to see. The police closed the investigation in 4 days. Police can be convinced too. Dominic pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. What exactly did your father do at Henderson and Associates? Forensic accounting. He specialized in tracing money through shell companies, offshore accounts. Corporate fraud cases, mostly. Alara watched him. Why do you care? Dominic looked up from his phone. In the moonlight, his eyes were almost black. Because Castellano Import-Export has been laundering money through my casinos for 6 months. Small amounts. Careful. But enough that my people noticed. The world tilted again. Your casinos. The Spire. The Azure. 3 others in Atlantic City, 2 in Pennsylvania. He pocketed his phone. I run legitimate businesses, Miss Mitchell. When someone tries to use them for illegitimate purposes, I take it personally. So, you came here to what? Confront Richard at his own wedding. I came here to see what kind of man marries into a family after he's already destroyed it. Dominic's voice was cold now, clinical. And to see if David Mitchell's daughter survived with her father's spine intact. Is that what the dance was? A test? No, for the first time, something almost human crossed his face. That was respect. Your father tried to do the right thing. It cost him everything. You deserved one moment where you weren't invisible. Alara's throat tightened. She'd spent 3 years being invisible, in hospitals, in rehabilitation centers, at family dinners where Vanessa talked around her like she was furniture. And this stranger, this dangerous man, had seen her. I have questions, she said carefully. About the money laundering.
About what my father found.
About. Not here. Dominic glanced back at the ballroom, where music still played and people still laughed. Richard's already paranoid. If he sees us talking twice in one night, he'll do something stupid. Then where? He pulled a business card from his pocket, handed it to her. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. Just a name and a phone number. Call that line tomorrow. Say you're interested in discussing the Vero Foundation's rehabilitation programs. My assistant will know what it means. The Vero Foundation? My late wife had MS, spent her last 5 years in a wheelchair. Dominic's voice was matter-of-fact, but Alara heard the grief underneath. The foundation supports mobility research and accessibility programs. It's legitimate, well-documented, and gives us an excellent reason to be seen together. Alara stared at the card. You're asking me to help you investigate Richard. I'm offering to help you find the truth about your father. He turned to leave, then paused. But understand something, Miss Mitchell. The people Richard works with, the people who sabotaged your father's car, they don't forgive loose ends. If you pursue this, you become a loose end. I've been a loose end since the night I survived and Dad didn't. Alara tucked the card into her purse. They should have finished the job. Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he almost smiled. Your father would be proud. He disappeared into the shadows, leaving Alara alone with the dying roses and the distant sound of her sister's laughter. She looked down at the card in her hand. Tomorrow, she'd call. Tomorrow, she'd start asking questions. Tonight, she'd let Richard and Vanessa celebrate their perfect wedding. They'd earned one last night of peace. The coffee shop Dominic chose was deliberately unremarkable, a chain place off Route 73, halfway between Cherry Hill and Philadelphia, the kind where nobody looked up from their laptops or cared who sat in the corner booth. Alara arrived 15 minutes early, wheeling herself through the accessible entrance. ordering a latte she wouldn't drink. Nerves made her hands shake slightly as she positioned herself at the back table Dominic had specified. What am I doing? 3 days had passed since Vanessa's wedding. 3 days of her sister's cold silence and Richard's nervous phone calls. Just checking in on you, Alara. Making sure you're feeling okay. That scene with Vero didn't upset you, did it? She'd played fragile. Said she was fine. Said Dominic had been kind, nothing more. Richard had relaxed. Believed her. Men always underestimated what women in wheelchairs could do. Dominic arrived exactly on time, carrying a leather messenger bag and wearing jeans and a dark sweater, somehow more intimidating in casual clothes than he'd been in his suit. He slid into the booth across from her, without preamble. You weren't followed. I took an Uber. Made him drop me at the Target next door. Came through the back entrance. Alara kept her voice low. I'm not an idiot. No, Dominic opened his bag, pulled out a tablet. You're David Mitchell's daughter. That makes you smarter than most people in this equation. He turned the tablet toward her. The screen showed financial documents, spreadsheets, account numbers, transaction records. All stamped with the Castellano Import-Export logo. This is what my forensic accountant found, Dominic said. Richard's company has been moving money through a series of shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, then filtering it back through my casinos as gambling winning small amounts. 2,000–3,000 at a time. Nothing that would trigger federal reporting requirements. Alara studied the numbers. Even after 3 years away from her father's world, she recognized the pattern. It's not about the money. It's about making dirty money look clean. Exactly. The question is, where's the dirty money coming from? And you think my father figured that out? Dominic nodded. David was consulting on the Henderson firm's annual audit of Castellano Import-Export. He would have seen these same discrepancies. Maybe traced them further than my people did. Alara's mind raced. She remembered that last month, Dad coming home late, distracted, spending hours in his home office with the door locked. She'd asked him once if everything was okay. He'd smiled, kissed her forehead, said, "Just a complicated case, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." But he'd been worried. She'd seen it in the way he gripped his coffee mug too tight, the way he checked the rearview mirror constantly when they drove. I need to show you something, Alara said quietly. She pulled a small USB drive from her purse. After Dad died, I couldn't bear to go through his things. Vanessa and Mom boxed up his office, donated most of it. But last month, I finally went through the boxes in Mom's garage. She placed the drive on the table between them. Dad used to keep encrypted backups of his work files. Company policy. Everything had to be secured. I found this in a hollowed-out copy of The Great Gatsby on his bookshelf. He loved that book. Read it every year. Dominic's eyes sharpened. You haven't accessed it? I tried. It's password protected. Military-grade encryption. Alara's voice cracked slightly. I don't know the password. I've tried everything. Birthdays, our old address, Mom's maiden name. Nothing works. Dominic took the drive carefully, as if it were made of glass. I have people who can crack this. But Alara, he looked at her directly. Once we open this, there's no going back. If your father documented what he found, if there's evidence here that connects Richard to something criminal, you'll be in danger. Real danger. I've been in danger for 3 years. I just didn't know it. Alara leaned forward. Those people killed my father, and left me like this. They took everything. And then Richard had the audacity to marry my sister, to smile at family dinners, to make jokes about my wheelchair. Her voice had risen. An elderly couple 2 tables over-glanced their direction. Alara forced herself to breathe, to lower her voice. I don't want revenge, she said, and realized it was true. I want the truth. I want the world to know my father wasn't just some accountant who died in a car accident. He was trying to do the right thing. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then, my wife's name was Catherine. She died 4 years ago. MS, like I said, but at the end it was pneumonia that took her. His fingers tightened around his coffee cup. The last year, she couldn't speak. Could barely move. But her eyes, she could still tell me everything with her eyes. I'm sorry, Alara said softly. The day before she died, her eyes said, "Stop protecting me. Start living." Dominic looked at Alara. "I've spent 4 years building walls, running legitimate businesses, trying to prove I'm not what people think I am. But walls don't bring justice. They just keep you safe and alone. So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying yes. We'll crack this drive. We'll find out what your father knew. And if it leads where I think it does," he pocketed the USB drive, "we'll burn Richard Castellano's world down." Alara felt something unfurl in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or purpose. Or something more dangerous than both. How do we start? "We start by making everyone believe we're doing something else entirely." Dominic pulled out his phone, showed her a press release draft. "Tomorrow, the Vero Foundation announces its partnership with rehabilitation advocate Alara Mitchell to develop new accessibility initiatives. You'll be my public face for the program. We'll meet regularly. Perfectly legitimate. Perfectly documented. And privately." His smile was sharp as a knife. "Privately, we investigate who killed your father. And why Richard Castellano was willing to murder for it." Alara extended her hand across the table. "Then let's get to work." Dominic shook it. His grip was warm, solid, certain. Outside, rain began to fall. Inside, 2 broken people started planning to break someone else. The press release hit the newswire Thursday morning. Vero Foundation announces partnership with accessibility advocate Alara Mitchell. Atlantic City, New Jersey. The Vero Foundation for Mobility Research is proud to announce a collaborative initiative with Miss Alara Mitchell, survivor and advocate, to develop innovative accessibility programs for disabled individuals across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Alara's phone started ringing at 7:47 a.m. "What the hell is this?" Vanessa's voice was ice and venom. "You're working with Dominic Vero? The man who humiliated Richard at my wedding." "He didn't humiliate anyone. He asked me to dance." Alara kept her voice level, practiced. She'd rehearsed this conversation with Dominic. "And the foundation work is real, Van. They want to fund accessibility retrofits in public spaces. It's a good opportunity. It's embarrassing. Richard's family is already." Vanessa stopped herself. "You need to decline. Tell them you're not interested."
No.
The silence on the other end was sharp enough to cut.
No.
Vanessa's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "After everything we've done for you? After Mom paid for your medical bills? After we brought you into our home when you had nowhere else to? I lived with you for 6 months, Vanessa. And you made me feel like a charity case every single day." Alara's grip tightened on her phone. "This is my decision. I'm doing it." Vanessa hung up without another word. Alara sat in her small apartment, the accessible ground floor unit she'd rented with Dad's life insurance money, and allowed herself a small, bitter smile. Phase 1 complete. Create distance. Make it look like independence, not investigation. Her laptop pinged. An encrypted message through the secure app Dominic had installed. Saturday, 2 p.m. The Azure. Private office. "We have results." The Azure Casino was everything Alara expected: calculated opulence, carefully manufactured luxury, the kind of place where money changed hands so fast you forgot it represented actual life, actual work. Dominic's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Teresa, met her at the private elevator and escorted her to the top floor without comment. No judgment about the wheelchair.
No excessive helpfulness.
Just professional efficiency. The office was surprisingly austere. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic City boardwalk. A heavy desk with 2 computer monitors. Bookshelves filled with legal texts and financial regulations. The only personal touch was a photograph on the desk, a woman with kind eyes and dark hair, smiling from a wheelchair on a beach somewhere sunny. "Catherine. We cracked your father's drive." Dominic's voice came from behind her. He closed the office door, locked it, then moved to his desk and woke up one of the monitors. "What we found. Alara, your father wasn't just investigating accounting fraud." She wheeled closer. The screen showed a document, her father's handwriting. She recognized it instantly. Always precise. Always methodical. Castellano investigation. Preliminary findings. Subject: Richard Castellano and Castellano Import-Export. Cross-reference: Volkov Bratva, Russian organized crime. Status: active trafficking operation. The words blurred. Alara forced herself to focus. Trafficking, she whispered. What kind? Everything. Dominic's voice was grim. He pulled up another file. Your father traced shipping manifests that didn't match customs declarations. Containers arriving from Eastern Europe marked as industrial equipment, that weighed wrong, scanned wrong. He found payment records to shell companies owned by the Volkov organization. He clicked through photographs, shipping containers, warehouse receipts, blurred surveillance images of men loading trucks at night. Richard's company was moving people. Women mostly from Ukraine, Romania, Moldova. And guns. Military-grade weapons purchased legally in the U.S., then lost in transit and shipped to conflict zones in Africa and the Middle East. Dominic's jaw was tight. Your father documented everything. Dates, amounts, routes, bank accounts. Alara felt sick. And Richard found out. Your father made one mistake. He sent a preliminary memo to his supervisor at Henderson and Associates, asking for authorization to expand the investigation. That supervisor, Dominic pulled up another file. Maxwell Henderson, founding partner. He's on Castellano's private payroll. Has been for 12 years. So Henderson warned Richard. And Richard made a phone call to his father's business associates. Dominic's expression was stone. 3 days later, your father's brake line was cut. The room spun. Alara gripped her wheelchair's armrests, forcing herself to breathe. All these years, she'd known it wasn't an accident. But knowing and knowing were different things. The people who did this, she said carefully, the Volkov people, they're still operating?
Yes.
And if they knew you had this information, they'd finish what they started. Alara looked up at him. So, we can't let them know. Not until we have enough to take down the entire operation. Dominic studied her. This isn't just about Richard anymore. This is Russian Mafia, federal trafficking charges, international weapons smuggling. The kind of case that takes years to build properly. Then we'd better work fast. Alara's voice was steel. What do we need? Evidence that will hold up in court. Not just your father's files. Those are 3 years old. We need current proof that the operation is still active. Dominic sat on the edge of his desk. And we need to be very, very careful. One wrong move and we're both dead. You keep saying we. Alara met his gaze. You could hand this to the FBI right now. Walk away clean. I could. Something flickered in his expression. But I've spent 4 years playing it safe, being legitimate, avoiding anything that might draw the wrong kind of attention. Catherine told me once that safety is just another word for cowardice. When people are suffering, he gestured to the files. These women, the people affected by those weapons, they're suffering. Your father tried to stop it and died trying. So, we finish what he started. We finish what he started, Dominic agreed. But Alara, this means lying to your family. Pretending to be something you're not. Using the foundation, using public sympathy, using everything we can to mask the real investigation. You mean pretending where she trailed off?
Dating.
Eventually. It's the perfect cover. Disabled woman finds love with widowed philanthropist. The press will eat it up. Richard will think you're distracted, maybe compromised by a relationship. He'll lower his guard. Alara's heart hammered. And if I say no to that part? Dominic's expression softened slightly. Then we find another way. I won't ask you to compromise yourself for this.
She thought about it.
About what her father would want. About the women in those shipping containers. The families destroyed by illegal weapons. The truth buried under 3 years of carefully constructed lies. Okay, she said quietly. We do it. All of it. Whatever it takes. Dominic extended his hand. Not to shake, to hold. Partners? Alara took his hand. His skin was warm against hers. Partners. Outside the window, the Atlantic Ocean crashed against the shore, relentless and dark. Inside, two people made a promise that would either save lives or end their own. 3 weeks into their partnership, Ilera realized she was in trouble. Not the kind involving Russian mobsters or shipping manifests, though there was plenty of that. The dangerous kind. The kind that made her heart race when Dominic's number appeared on her phone. The kind that made her spend too long choosing what to wear to their foundation meetings. They were having lunch at a waterfront restaurant in Cape May, far enough from Atlantic City to avoid familiar faces. To anyone watching, they looked like exactly what they were supposed to be, a man and woman discussing charity work over crab cakes and iced tea. Under the table, Ilera's laptop was open on her knees, displaying shipping records Dominic's people had intercepted from Castellano import/export servers. Container 4477B, she murmured, pretending to laugh at something he'd said. Arrived at Port Elizabeth 4 days ago. Manifest says machine parts. Weight's off by 3,000 pounds. Dominic leaned forward, his hand covering hers on the table, casual, affectionate to observers. His touch sent electricity up her arm. Can you cross-reference with your father's old routes? Already did. Same origin port in Odessa. Same dummy corporation listed as shipper. She pulled up another file. Richard's escalating. That's the 3rd container this month. He's confident. Thinks he's untouchable. Dominic's thumb traced absent circles on her wrist. Was that part of the performance, or? You two are adorable together. Their waitress appeared with refills, beaming. How long have you been dating? Ilera froze. They'd planned for this question, rehearsed it even, but her mind went blank. 5 weeks, Dominic said smoothly, not releasing Ilera's hand. Since the wedding where we met. Sometimes you just know. The waitress practically melted. That's so romantic. And the way you look at her, my husband hasn't looked at me like that in 20 years. After she left, Ilera carefully extracted her hand. You're good at this. At what? Lying. Making people believe something that isn't real. Dominic was quiet for a moment. Who says it isn't real? Her breath caught. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. We need to go. Richard just called an emergency meeting with his father and 3 men my people identified as Volkov associates. Where? The Castellano estate. Cherry Hill, he signaled for the check. I have a contact in their security company. He's going to leave a dead zone in their camera coverage, back service entrance. If we move now. You want to bug the meeting? Ilera's pulse quickened. That's insane. If they catch us. They won't. You'll wait in the car. I go in alone. Absolutely not, she closed her laptop with a snap. We're partners, remember? You don't get to protect me by cutting me out, Ilera. I can access places you can't. She gestured to her wheelchair. Security doesn't see threats in wheelchairs. If something goes wrong, if you need a distraction, I'm more useful inside than sitting in a car. Dominic looked like he wanted to argue. Then slowly he nodded. You stay with me. Every second. And if I say run, I'll roll really fast, she said with a tight smile. The Castellano estate was everything old money tried to be. Italian marble, manicured hedges, a circular driveway with a fountain that probably cost more than Ilera's entire apartment building. Dominic's car, a nondescript black sedan, not the luxury vehicle he usually drove, parked 3 blocks away. They approached on foot, Ilera's wheelchair nearly silent on the sidewalk. 9 p.m. Dark enough for shadows, early enough that neighbors wouldn't be suspicious. The service entrance was exactly where Dominic's contact said it would be. A simple keypad lock. Dominic entered a 6-digit code, and the door clicked open. Inside smelled like expensive cleaning products and old cigars. They moved through a commercial kitchen, past a laundry room, into a service hallway lined with staff lockers. Voices drifted from above, muffled, but angry. Richard's voice, higher-pitched than usual. An older man, probably his father Anthony. And others, speaking accented English. Dominic pulled out a device the size of a deck of cards, a directional microphone with a recorder. He pointed upward, found the air vent, carefully positioned the microphone. Getting sloppy. Anthony Castellano's voice came through clearly. You think your father-in-law finding out was an accident? You think some accountant just stumbles onto our operation? I handled it. Richard's voice was defensive. Mitchell's dead. His daughter's a cripple. It's done. Alara's hands clenched. Dominic's hand found her shoulder, squeezed gently.
Stay calm.
Is done. A new voice, cold and Russian-accented. Then why Vero Foundation asking questions? Why this Dominic Vero suddenly interested in your business? That's nothing. He's dating Mitchell's daughter. It's coincidence. There is no coincidence. The Russian voice turned dangerous. There is only loose ends. And you, Richard Castellano, are becoming very loose end. A crash, glass breaking. Richard yelped. You bring us next shipment in 2 weeks, clean, no problems. Or we solve loose end problem permanently. Understand? I understand. I understand. Footsteps above, moving toward stairs. They're coming down, Dominic whispered urgently. He grabbed the microphone, shoved it in his jacket. Back door.
Now.
But Alara had frozen, staring at the staircase. Because she'd just heard something else. A sound she knew too well. A woman's voice.
Crying.
Speaking Romanian, she'd learned enough from her college roommate to recognize it. Please. Please, my daughter. Dominic, Alara breathed. They have someone here. In the house. His face went pale. We can't. We have to. If we try to extract someone now, they'll know we were here. Everything we've built. There's a woman up there, Alara's voice shook. Probably trafficked. Definitely terrified. We can't just leave her. Dominic looked at her, really looked at her. She saw the calculation in his eyes, the tactical assessment. Then something else. Recognition. You're right, he said quietly. Catherine wouldn't have left her either. He moved to the staircase, listened. Footsteps receding. The men were going out the front. He gestured for Alara to follow. They found her in a third-floor bedroom. A girl, maybe 19, thin as paper, bruises on her arms. She looked up when they entered, terror flooding her face. We're here to help, Alara said softly, rolling forward. We're getting you out. The girls stared. At the wheelchair. At Alara's face. Something shifted in her expression. Not trust exactly, but desperate hope. She took Alara's extended hand. And everything changed. The safe house was a 2-bedroom apartment in Wildwood, rented under a shell company 3 layers deep. The girl, her name was Yana, sat wrapped in blankets on the couch, sipping hot tea with shaking hands while Dominic made phone calls in the other room. Alara stayed with her, not speaking, just present. She'd learned in her own recovery that sometimes silence was the only kindness that didn't feel like pressure. Thank you, Yana finally whispered in halting English.
They say
I work off debt. For years. They say family back home will die if I run. You're safe now, Alara said gently. We have people who can protect your family. But we need you to tell us everything you know about the operation. Can you do that? Yana nodded, tears streaming down her face. It took 3 hours. By the end, they had names, locations, a timeline of how the trafficking network operated. Yana had been promised a waitressing job in New York. Instead, she'd been locked in that bedroom for 6 weeks, moved between the Castellano estate and 2 other locations, forced to. Alara didn't let herself think about the details.
Couldn't.
If she did, she'd break. Dominic arranged for Yana to be moved to a women's shelter with federal protection. FBI would be involved now, carefully, quietly, through contacts Dominic trusted. But it would take time to build a case that wouldn't tip off the Volkovs. Dawn was breaking when Dominic drove Alara home. You saved her life tonight, he said quietly. We saved her life.
No.
I would have left her, his hands tightened on the steering wheel. I would have prioritized the investigation over one person. Made the tactical choice. You didn't. Alara looked at him. In the gray morning light, he looked exhausted. And something else, almost vulnerable. Your wife taught you to stop protecting yourself, she said softly. Maybe it's time you listen. He glanced at her, something unreadable in his eyes. Maybe you're the one teaching me now. The moment stretched between them, charged and fragile. Then Dominic's phone rang. He answered, listened. His expression went carefully blank. Understood. Send it to me. He hung up, jaw tight. That was Teresa. We have a problem. The photos hit TMZ at 11 a.m. Casino mogul Dominic Vero's secret romance with disabled beauty. The pictures were grainy but unmistakable. Alara and Dominic at the Cape May restaurant, his hand covering hers. Another of them leaving together, Dominic leaning close to her wheelchair. Intimate. A third from last night, leaving the Castellano estate, Yana's face blurred but visible, Alara's expression intense. The headline on the third photo, Vero and Mitchell caught in late-night rendezvous at mystery location. The article was poison wrapped in gossip. It painted Alara as a gold digger, latching onto a wealthy widower. Questioned whether the foundation partnership was legitimate or just cover for an affair. Speculated about Dominic's type, pointing out Catherine had also used a wheelchair. Does billionaire Vero have a fetish for vulnerable women? Sources close to the family suggest Mitchell may be using her disability to manipulate the grieving widower. Alara's phone exploded. Texts, calls, emails. Her mother, crying. Old friends from college, concerned. Strangers sending hate mail. And Vanessa. She showed up at Alara's apartment at 2 p.m., letting herself in with the spare key Alara kept forgetting to take back. She was dressed in designer athleisure, makeup perfect, fury barely contained. You did this on purpose, Vanessa hissed, slamming a tablet showing the photos onto Alara's kitchen table. You humiliate yourself, humiliate our family, just to get attention. I'm not the one who leaked those photos, Van.
No?
Then who did? Vanessa's voice rose. Who benefits from making you look like a desperate cripple throwing herself at the first rich man who shows interest? The word hit like a slap. Alara's vision went white at the edges. Get out. Richard's business is suffering because of you. Because his name is now associated with this spectacle. Clients are pulling contracts. His father is furious. Good, Alara said coldly. Richard deserves worse than bad publicity. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means I know things, Vanessa. About your husband. About his family business. Things that would make bad publicity look like a blessing. You're threatening me? Vanessa's laugh was brittle. You? You can't even walk, Alara. You're pathetic. You've been pathetic since the accident. Since the murder. The words came out sharp as glass. The accident that killed Dad and put me in this chair wasn't an accident. And your husband knows exactly what happened. Vanessa went very still. You're insane. Am I? Ask Richard about Dad's investigation. Ask him about Castellano import-export. Ask him why Dad died 3 days before he was supposed to meet with the state attorney. Stop, Vanessa's voice shook. Just stop. Whatever conspiracy theory you've built in your head. It's not a theory. I have proof. Vanessa stared at her. For one moment, Alara saw something crack in her sister's perfect facade. Doubt, maybe. Or fear. Then the mask slammed back down. You're delusional, Vanessa said flatly. And you're alone. Mom won't believe you. Nobody will. You're just a bitter, broken woman who can't accept that the rest of us moved on. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door.
Paused.
Richard says I should tell you to stay away from his family. But I'll tell you something else. She looked back, her eyes cold. Dominic Vero is using you. Men like him don't fall for women like you. He's using you to get to Richard, and when he's done, you'll be alone again. Just like you deserve. The door slammed. Alara sat in the silence, shaking. Not from fear. From rage so pure it burned away everything else. Her phone buzzed. Dominic. The photos came from Richard's private investigator. He's been following us. We need to meet. She typed back. When?
Now.
My office. Alara. Vanessa's probably going straight to Richard.
He'll know we're onto him.
Alara looked at the photos still glowing on the tablet screen. At herself, caught in moments that were supposed to be performance, but had started feeling dangerously real.
Good, she typed.
Let him know. Let him panic. Panicked people make mistakes. That works both ways, Dominic replied. Panicked people also get desperate. Alara wheeled to her bedroom, pulled her father's old investigator's notebook from her nightstand drawer. She'd been reading it every night, memorizing his patterns, his methods. On the last page, in his careful handwriting, when you corner a rat, make sure you're not standing in front of the only exit. She smiled grimly. Time to close all the exits. The email arrived at 6:47 a.m., 2 days after Vanessa's visit. Urgent. Federal investigation notice. Alara's blood went cold as she read. The SEC was investigating Dominic's casinos for money laundering. Anonymous tip, they said. Evidence of collusion with known criminal organizations. And the source of the tip? Confidential documents allegedly leaked by Alara Mitchell, accessibility consultant to the Vero Foundation.
Her phone rang. Dominic.
Tell me you didn't open any attachments in the last 48 hours, he said without preamble. His voice was tight, controlled, the sound of a man barely containing fury.
What? No.
They planted malware on your laptop. Accessed your files, your emails, everything. Then they created a trail showing you copied my company's financial records and sent them to a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Alara's apartment seemed to tilt. That's insane. I know. But the digital forensics looked damning. Timestamps, IP addresses, email headers, all pointing to you. A pause. Richard's lawyer sent my board a letter this morning. They're threatening to expose our investigation as corporate espionage, claiming you seduced me to gain access to confidential information. They're framing me. Perfectly. Whoever Richard has doing his tech work is excellent, Dominic's voice dropped. My board is meeting in 3 hours. They're going to demand I distance myself from you, from the foundation partnership, from everything. If I refuse, they'll vote me out of my own company. Alara's mind raced. So, we're done? They win. No, the word was steel. But we have to make it look like they won. I'm going to publicly end our partnership. Issue a statement saying I was misled, that the foundation will sever all ties with you pending investigation. It felt like being punched. You're going to let them destroy my reputation. I'm going to let them think they destroyed your reputation, his voice softened. Alara, if Richard believes we're finished, if he thinks you're isolated and discredited, he'll relax.
Get sloppy.
We need him sloppy. And what do I do while my name is being dragged through the mud? You disappear for a while. Let me handle the public side. I have lawyers who can quietly fight the SEC investigation.
But more importantly, he paused.
I found something. In your father's encrypted files. Something he left hidden in the metadata. Her breath caught. What? Coordinates. GPS coordinates for a location in the Pine Barrens. And a date. 3 days before he died. I think your father hid physical evidence somewhere. Backup files, documents, something the digital trail couldn't capture. Why wouldn't he tell me? Because he was protecting you. If something happened to him, he wanted you safe. Dominic's voice was gentle now. But there's something else. The metadata included another file. A video file that was deleted but not overwritten. My tech people recovered fragments. Alara, your father's alive. The world stopped. That's impossible. I was at the funeral. You saw a closed casket. You were told the injuries were too severe for viewing. Dominic spoke carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. I had my people check with the medical examiner's office. The body they pulled from the river was identified through dental records provided by your family dentist, Dr. Raymond Marsh. Marsh has been our dentist for 20 years. And he's been on Anthony Castellano's payroll for 12. Alara, the body in that casket wasn't your father. David Mitchell is alive. He's been in hiding for 3 years, and he's been trying to reach out. Her hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. Reach out how? Remember the anonymous tip that started my investigation into Castellano import-export? That was him. The surveillance photos of their warehouses? Him. He's been feeding me information for 6 months, guiding me toward the evidence, but he couldn't reveal himself because they'd kill him if they knew he survived. Alara's throat was tight, and they'd use me to draw him out.
Exactly.
But now that Richard thinks we're compromised, now that he believes the investigation is dead, Dominic's voice carried an edge of something dangerous. Your father sent me a message this morning, through an encrypted channel. He wants to meet both of us at those coordinates in the Pine Barrens. Tomorrow night. Alara couldn't breathe. 3 years. 3 years of grief, of believing her father was dead, of carrying the weight of being the only survivor. And he'd been alive, watching, waiting. Why now? She whispered. Because Richard's escalating. Yana's disappearance has the Volkovs asking questions. They're planning something big, a final major shipment before they shut down the operation and disappear. Your father has the evidence to stop it, but he needs our help to get it to the right people without getting killed in the process. A knock at Alara's door made her jump. Hard, official. Alara Mitchell? FBI. We need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Dominic Vero and allegations of corporate espionage. Her heart hammered. They're here. The FBI is at my door. Don't let them in without a lawyer. I'm sending mine, Judith Chun. She's the best. She'll be there in 20 minutes. Tell them nothing until she arrives. Dominic's voice was urgent. And Alara? This gets worse before it gets better. But I promise you, I'm not abandoning you. This is strategy, not surrender. How do I know I can trust you? The question came out smaller than she intended. Because I just told you your father is alive when I could have kept using that information as leverage. Because I could walk away right now and save my company. And because he stopped. Because what? Because somewhere in the last month, this stopped being just an investigation. His voice was raw. Teresa asked me yesterday if I was falling for you. I told her I was too old and too damaged for that. But I think I lied. The pounding on her door intensified. Miss Mitchell, we can hear you in there. I have to go, Alara breathed. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Those coordinates. Your father will explain everything. A pause. And, Alara, whatever happens in the next 24 hours, whatever you see in the news about me, about us, remember that the best lies are wrapped in truth. He hung up. Alara wheeled to the door, her mind spinning. Her father was alive. Dominic was about to betray her publicly. The FBI wanted to arrest her. And somewhere in the Pine Barrens, the truth was waiting. She opened the door to federal badges and hard faces. Miss Mitchell, you're under investigation for corporate espionage and conspiracy to commit fraud. She let the words wash over her, thinking about her father's last note in his investigator's handbook. When you corner a rat, make sure you're not standing in front of the only exit. Time to find out who is really cornered. The Pine Barrens at night were exactly as unsettling as every New Jersey legend promised. Twisted trees, absolute darkness beyond the headlights, the kind of silence that felt alive. Alara sat in the passenger seat of Dominic's car, her wheelchair folded in the back. The last 24 hours had been a nightmare. 6 hours of FBI questioning. Judith Chin stonewalling every question with lawyer precision. Then the press conference. Dominic, standing before cameras, his face carved from ice. The Vero Foundation deeply regrets being manipulated. Miss Mitchell's employment is terminated, effective immediately. She'd watched from Judith's office. Watched him lie perfectly. Watched the board members behind him nod with satisfaction. Watched her phone explode with hate messages. Only one text mattered, sent from a burner number. Tonight. Coordinates unchanged. Come alone. Now they were alone, driving deeper into wilderness that had swallowed bodies for centuries. Half a mile, Dominic said, checking his GPS. His hands were steady on the wheel, but she could see the tension in his jaw. The coordinates point to an old ranger station, abandoned since the 90s. What if it's a trap? Alara's voice was quiet. What if Richard figured out your plan and… Then we're already dead, he glanced at her. But your father was careful for 3 years. He wouldn't break cover unless he was certain. The ranger station appeared in the headlights, a small wooden structure. Windows boarded, roof sagging. A single light glowed inside, visible through gaps in the boards. Dominic parked. Stay here while I… No. Alara was already opening her door. If my father's in there, I'm not waiting in the car.
He didn't argue.
Just helped her into the wheelchair, pulled a gun from his jacket, when Hattie started carrying a gun, and moved toward the building with predatory caution. The door opened before they reached it. The man standing in the doorway was thinner than Alara remembered. His hair was longer, touched with more gray. He wore flannel and jeans instead of his accountant suits. But his eyes, those were the same. Sharp, kind, alive. Hi, sweetheart, David Mitchell said softly. Alara couldn't speak, couldn't move. 3 years of grief crashed into impossible joy, and she was drowning in it. Then she was rolling forward, and he was kneeling, and his arms were around her, and he smelled like cheap soap and pine trees and home. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. God, Alara, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you, wanted to come back, but they would have killed you to get to me. You let me think you were dead, her voice broke.
3 years, Dad.
3 years. I know, he pulled back, his eyes wet. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. But right now, we have to move fast. He stood, nodded to Dominic. Mr. Vero, thank you for protecting her. She doesn't need much protecting, Dominic's voice was rough. You taught her well. David managed a small smile. She taught herself. I just gave her the tools, he gestured them inside.
Come.
I have everything documented. The ranger station's interior was a makeshift command center. Laptops, external hard drives, cork boards covered with photographs, and string connecting names and locations. 3 years of obsessive investigation turned into a physical shrine. After the accident, I woke up downstream, David explained, pulling up files on the largest laptop. Hypothermia, broken ribs, but alive. A homeless veteran found me, got me to a clinic that didn't ask questions. By the time I could think straight, the funeral had already happened. The body? Alara asked. A John Doe from the morgue. Marsh falsified the dental records. He was in debt to Anthony Castellano. They had leverage. David's voice was bitter. I realized if they thought I was dead, I could investigate without them watching. So I stayed dead. He pulled up a video file. Grainy surveillance footage of a warehouse. Men in expensive suits overseeing the unloading of shipping containers. Women being herded out, blinking in harsh fluorescent light. Weapons in crates marked with Cyrillic text. This is from 4 days ago. One of Richard's facilities in Camden. The Volkovs are planning their biggest shipment yet, 200 women. Enough weapons to supply a small militia. It arrives in 3 days at Port Elizabeth.
We can stop it, Dominic said.
With this evidence, federal prosecutors can't touch them. David shook his head. The Volkovs have people inside federal law enforcement. I've spent 3 years tracking the corruption. Anyone we give this to officially will be compromised before they can act. Then what do we do? Alara asked. David pulled up another file. This one was different, a flash drive image, file directories visible. This is Castellano's complete operation. Financial records, communications with the Volkovs, locations of every safe house, every shipment, every politician and cop on their payroll. He looked at them both. Everything needed to dismantle the entire network. But it's not just data. I have testimony from 3 other trafficked women who escaped and came to me. I have weapons serial numbers traced back to illegal purchases. I have recordings of Anthony Castellano ordering hits on witnesses.
How?
Dominic asked. How did you get all this? I became invisible. Homeless, mostly. People don't see homeless men. I could stand outside their offices, sleep in their building lobbies, dig through their trash. And I had help. Yana's not the first person I've extracted. Some of them stayed, helped me gather evidence. He pulled the flash drive from the laptop, held it like a grenade. This ends them.
Completely.
But the moment we release it, the Volkovs will know I'm alive. They'll come for all of us. Then we make sure they can't, Alara said firmly. She looked at her father, then at Dominic. We don't just expose them. We destroy them.
Completely.
All at once. No warning. No chance to run. David smiled, the proud father smile she remembered from childhood. What are you thinking? Richard's planning something for the wedding anniversary party. Vanessa mentioned it. A big event. All of Richard's business associates. Alara's mind raced. What if we give them exactly what they want? Make them think they've won. That the investigation is dead, that I'm discredited, that Dominic's abandoned the case. And then, Dominic asked, though she could see understanding dawning in his eyes. Then we crashed the party. Alara took the flash drive from her father. With the FBI, the press, and every piece of evidence my father collected. We burn it all down in front of everyone.
No escape.
No deals. David looked at Dominic. Your company will be caught in the crossfire. The money laundering through your casinos, even if it was without your knowledge. Let it burn, Dominic said quietly, echoing Alara's words from weeks ago. Some things are worth more than money. Outside, an engine rumbled in the distance. All three of them froze. That's not possible, David breathed. Nobody knows about this location except. Headlights cut through the trees. Multiple vehicles. We've been followed, Dominic said, already moving to the window. Or tracked. How did they? My phone, Alara's blood went cold. The FBI. They must have planted tracking software during the interrogation. Out the back, David snapped, already moving. There's a trail. Leads to a secondary road. The night exploded with gunfire. Glass shattered. Bullets punched through the wooden walls like paper. Go. David shoved Alara's wheelchair toward the back door while Dominic returned fire through the window. 3 precise shots that bought them seconds. The back of the ranger station opened onto dense forest. No path.
No ramp.
Just roots and darkness, and impossible terrain for a wheelchair. Alara's father didn't hesitate. He grabbed her from the chair, lifted her like she weighed nothing, and ran. Dominic followed, the laptop bag with all the evidence slung across his chest, firing behind them. The car's a quarter-mile east, David gasped. Old logging road. I kept it hidden in case. More gunfire. A tree beside them exploded in splinters. They crashed through underbrush, David's breathing ragged. Alara could feel his heart hammering against her cheek. 3 years of hiding, of living rough, had made him lean but not weak. He ran like a man who'd spent years preparing for this exact moment. Behind them, voices shouted in Russian. At least 4 men. Maybe more. There. Dominic pointed. A battered pickup truck, covered in camouflage netting. David's escape vehicle. They reached it. David set Alara in the passenger seat, Dominic Dove in the back. The engine turned over, once, twice, coughing. Come on, David muttered. Come on, you piece of. It roared to life. He floored it, the truck lurching onto the overgrown logging road just as their pursuers burst from the trees. Bullets cracked against the tailgate. The rear window spiderwebbed but held. How did they find us? David shouted over the engine. My phone, Alara said, pulling it from her pocket. But I turned it off. Doesn't matter with modern spyware, Dominic said grimly. They can activate it remotely, track GPS even when it's supposedly off. Alara rolled down the window and threw the phone into the darkness. What now? We can't go to the police, can't go home. We don't run, David's voice was hard. We attack. Right now, while they think they have us on the defensive. He pulled onto a paved road, headed north. Away from Atlantic City, away from safety. That flash drive has everything. Every name, every location. We upload it to every news outlet simultaneously. Federal prosecutors who aren't compromised, state attorney general, even international press. Make it too big to bury. They'll kill us before we can send it, Alara said. Not if we're already surrounded by witnesses. Dominic pulled out his phone, not his regular one, a burner. Richard's anniversary party is tomorrow night. At the Grand Meridian. Same place as the wedding. You want to walk into a room full of criminals and their associates? David looked at him like he was insane. I want to make it impossible for them to touch us without exposing themselves. Dominic was already typing. I still have friends in the press. People who owe me favors. What if Dominic Vero, disgraced casino mogul, crashes Richard Castellano's party to make a public statement? Cameras everywhere. Live streaming. Every news outlet covering the spectacle. And we release the evidence during the live stream. Alara breathed, understanding. In front of everyone. Undeniable. Inescapable.
Exactly.
We make Richard's party his public execution. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, sharp and dangerous. Your mother would have hated this plan. Said it was too risky. He glanced at Alara. But your mother never understood that sometimes the safest place is the center of the storm. We'll need the FBI there, Dominic said. Real FBI, not Volkov plants. I have one contact I trust. Agent Sarah Chen, no relation to my lawyer. She's been investigating Russian trafficking independently. If we give her a heads up, coordinate the release. No, David's voice was firm. The moment we contact anyone official, we risk a leak. We do this completely alone until the evidence is already public. Then it's too big to stop. They drove in silence for a moment. Then Alara asked the question none of them wanted to answer. What about Vanessa? David's hands tightened on the wheel. What about her? She's going to be there. At the party. When everything comes out about Richard, Alara's throat was tight. Dad, it's going to destroy her. She made her choice, David said quietly. She chose him over family. Over you. She didn't know. She didn't want to know, his voice cracked. When I started investigating Richard's company, I tried to warn her. She called me paranoid. Said I was trying to ruin her happiness. And after the accident, she never once questioned the official story. Never fought for the truth. Tears burned Alara's eyes. She's still my sister. And those women in Richard's shipping containers are someone's sisters too. David looked at her, his eyes hard but wet. We can't save everyone, sweetheart. Sometimes you have to choose between family and justice. Why not both? Dominic said quietly. We release the evidence at the party, yes. But we give Vanessa a choice first.
Tell her everything.
Show her proof. Let her decide if she stands with Richard or walks away. She won't believe us, Alara said. Maybe not. But we give her the chance. Dominic met her gaze. Everyone deserves the chance to do the right thing, even if they don't take it. The motel was 40 miles outside Atlantic City, the kind of place that rented by the hour and didn't ask for ID. They took 2 rooms, cash only, and spent the next 18 hours planning. David had copies of the evidence in 3 locations. Failsafes within failsafes. Dominic contacted his media people, set up the live stream, coordinated with the Grand Meridian's tech team, still loyal to him, to ensure the video couldn't be shut down once it started. Alara wrote what she would say. Rewrote it again. At 4 p.m., she sent a text to Vanessa from a burner phone. Meet me. Parking garage behind the Meridian. 6 p.m. Alone. It's about Dad.
Eh.
The response came 5 minutes later. This better not be another one of your delusions. But she'd come. Alara knew her sister. Vanessa couldn't resist the chance to prove she was right. At 5:45 p.m., Alara sat in the parking garage in a borrowed wheelchair. Her old one was still at the ranger station. Dominic waited in a car 2 levels up. Her father was in another car at the exit, watching for tails. Vanessa's Mercedes pulled in at 6:02. She emerged in a designer dress, hair perfect, face carefully neutral. She sat in the passenger seat of Alara's car without speaking. Alara handed her the tablet showing footage from Richard's warehouse. Just watch. Vanessa stared at the screen, at the women being unloaded, at the weapons, at Richard's face, clearly visible, directing the operation. Her hand shook. "This is fake," she whispered. "Deep fake or... It's real. Dad filmed it. He's alive, Vanessa." Her sister's head snapped up. "That's not funny. It's true. The body at the funeral wasn't his. Richard's father faked the identification. They tried to kill him, kill us, but Dad survived." Alara's voice was steady. "He's been gathering evidence for 3 years. Everything is documented. And tonight, we're releasing it all." Vanessa stared at her. Something crumbled behind her eyes.
No.
"No, Richard wouldn't. He murdered our father. Or tried to. He's trafficking human beings. He's laundering money for Russian mobsters." Alara leaned forward. "Van, tonight at your party, the world is going to learn the truth. The FBI is coming. The press will be everywhere. And you need to decide right now, are you standing beside him when it happens, or are you walking away?" Vanessa's perfect composure shattered. Tears carved tracks through her makeup. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't." "I believe you." Alara took her sister's shaking hand.
"So choose.
Family or him." Vanessa looked at the tablet again. At Richard's face. At the life she'd built on lies. "What do you need me to do?" she whispered. The Grand Meridian Ballroom was exactly as obscene as Vanessa's wedding had been. Crystal, gold leaf, champagne towers that cost more than most people's yearly salary. 200 guests in designer clothes, celebrating Richard and Vanessa's first anniversary with the kind of excess that only guilty money could buy. Alara watched from the service entrance, her father beside her, both dressed in catering uniforms Dominic had acquired. On the small monitor in her lap, she could see the ballroom through the hidden cameras Dominic's tech team had installed that afternoon. Richard stood at the center, accepting congratulations, his smile wide and false. Anthony Castellano held court near the bar, surrounded by men Alara recognized from her father's surveillance photos, Volkov associates. All of them. Arms dealers, traffickers, the kind of men who measured wealth in human suffering. Vanessa moved through the crowd like a ghost, her smile painted on, her eyes hollow. She'd made her choice. An hour ago, she'd transferred every document she could access from Richard's home office to Dominic's secure server. Property deeds, financial statements, passwords to offshore accounts. Everything a prosecutor would need. "She's stronger than I gave her credit for," David murmured, watching his daughter play her role. "She's terrified," Alara said. "But she's doing it anyway. That's what strength is." At 8 p.m. exactly, Dominic Vero entered the ballroom. The room went silent. Every head turned. Richard's face drained of color. Dominic wasn't alone. Behind him, a camera crew, ostensibly from a lifestyle channel doing a piece on casino moguls. In reality, journalists Dominic trusted, live streaming to 7 different platforms simultaneously. "Richard," Dominic's voice carried across the room, amplified by the microphone the crew wore. "I believe we have unfinished business. This is a private event." Anthony Castellano stepped forward. "You're not welcome here."
No?
"But I have so much to celebrate." Dominic smiled like a shark. "The successful resolution of my investigation into money laundering at my casinos. The identification of the parties responsible. The evidence I've provided to federal prosecutors." Richard backed up a step. "I don't know what you're." Container 4477B. Arrived Port Elizabeth 6 days ago. Manifest claimed machine parts, actual contents. Dominic gestured to the screen behind him, where the tech crew projected David's surveillance footage. The warehouse. The women. The weapons. Richard's face, unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. Some guests started recording. Others headed for exits, but Dominic's security team, posing as venue staff, had quietly locked the main doors. "That's fabricated," Anthony snarled. "Edited footage." "Is it?" David Mitchell stepped into the ballroom, still in his catering uniform, very much alive. "Hello, Anthony. Surprised to see me?" Vanessa's mother screamed. Several guests stumbled backward. Richard looked like he might vomit.
Impossible, Anthony Breted.
You're dead. We identified. A body that wasn't mine. David's voice was cold. Thanks to your pet dentist and his falsified records. But I've spent 3 years documenting everything. Every shipment. Every payment. Every murder you ordered to protect this operation. The screen changed. Financial records now. Money flowing through shell corporations, through Castellano Import-Export, through 24 businesses across 3 states. Names appeared. Politicians, police chiefs, federal agents. All on the Volkov payroll. No, Richard said, his voice rising to a shout. This is a setup. Vero's trying to frame us because his own business is failing. The FBI is already en route, Dominic said calmly. So is the press. Real press, not the lifestyle channel. He checked his watch. 3 minutes, every major news outlet will have these files. All of them. Simultaneously. Too many copies to suppress. Too much evidence to deny. Anthony moved. Fast for a man his age, pulling a gun from inside his jacket. But Dominic was faster, or expected it. His own weapon was already drawn, aimed center mass. Don't, Dominic said quietly. The room erupted. People screaming, scrambling for exits. The Volkov associates reached for weapons, but uniformed police were suddenly everywhere. They'd been waiting outside, coordinated by Agent Sarah Chin, who'd gotten an anonymous tip with enough evidence to obtain warrants. In the chaos, Ilera rolled forward. She wheeled directly to Richard, who stood frozen, his world collapsing around him. My father was a good man, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. He tried to stop you. You destroyed our family for it. Put me in this chair. Made me think I was alone. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice didn't shake. I want you to know that you failed. We're still here. And you're finished. Richard lunged at her. Pure rage, no thought. But Dominic was there, intercepting, slamming Richard face first into the floor. Federal agents swarmed, cuffing Richard, dragging him up. Richard Castellano, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, human trafficking, weapons smuggling. The list went on. Anthony was cuffed too, along with 6 other men. The Volkov associates fought. 2 were shot trying to escape. The ballroom was a war zone of overturned tables and shattered crystal. Vanessa stood frozen in the center of it all, watching her husband being dragged away. He screamed at her, curses, threats, blamed her for everything. She didn't react, just watched, tears falling silently. Then she walked to Ilera, to their father. She collapsed into David's arms, sobbing like a broken child. I'm sorry, she gasped. God, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have. David held her, his own tears falling. You're here now. That's what matters. Ilera took her sister's hand. 3 years of resentment, of pain, of distance. It didn't vanish, but it softened. Family was complicated. Forgiveness was a process, not a moment. But this moment was a start. By midnight, the story was everywhere. Every news channel, every website, trending on every social platform. The scale of the operation, the names of the complicit officials, the scope of the corruption, it was too big to bury. Too documented to deny. Dominic gave a statement outside the Meridian, cameras everywhere. I'm stepping down from all operational roles at my companies, effective immediately, while federal investigators audit every transaction. I want complete transparency. The victims of this operation deserve nothing less. He looked directly at the camera, at Ilera, watching from Agent Chen's car. And to those who suffered because my businesses were used for evil, I'm sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. Then he walked away from the cameras, away from his empire, into the night. Agent Chen drove Ilera and her father to a safe house. Protective custody, she called it, just for a few days while they rounded up the remaining Volkov associates. But when morning came, Dominic Vero was gone. His companies were in receivership. His homes were empty. His phones disconnected. He'd simply vanished. Alara found the letter slipped under her door at the safe house. You gave me something worth more than power, peace. Use your truth wisely. Tell your story. Help those women we couldn't save. Live the life your father fought to give you. I need to disappear for a while. The Volkovs have long memories, and my name brings danger to everyone near me. But I'll be watching. Always. You taught me to stop running from my ghosts. Now I need to make sure your ghosts can't follow you anymore. Thank you for the dance. D. Alara held the letter, her throat tight. He was gone. And somehow, impossibly, that felt like the right ending. Or maybe just the beginning of something else. 6 months later, Alara actually stood, in front of the mirror, her hands gripping the parallel bars that ran the length of her physical therapy room. 3 more steps, Dr. Patel said encouragingly. You've got this. The supportive braces on her legs were experimental, cutting-edge technology funded by a grant from an anonymous donor. They didn't make her walk normally, probably never would, but they gave her enough stability to move short distances without the wheelchair. 3 steps felt like climbing Everest. She made it 4 before her legs gave out. Dr. Patel caught her, helped her back into the wheelchair, both of them grinning like idiots. 4 months ago, you couldn't stand for 10 seconds, Dr. Patel said. Now look at you. Alara looked at the woman in the mirror who'd spent 3 years believing she'd never walk again. Who'd learned that strength wasn't about what your body could do, but what your spirit refused to surrender. Her phone buzzed. Her father, contractor, says the building will be ready by next month. You sure about the name? She smiled and typed back, absolutely certain. The Vero Foundation for Rehabilitation and Justice had been her father's idea, actually. He saved your life, David had said. Saved all of us. His name deserves to be remembered for something good. The foundation would be housed in a renovated warehouse in Camden, the same building where Richard's trafficking operation had run. Alara had bought it at auction with the settlement money from Dominic's companies. Blood money, technically, but she was washing it clean, turning a place of suffering into a place of healing. The foundation would offer 3 things: rehabilitation services for trauma survivors, legal advocacy for trafficking victims, and investigative support for families seeking justice in cases the system had abandoned. Alara would run it. Her father would handle the finances. He'd been reinstated to the state bar after his death, was revealed as survival, his accounting license restored. Vanessa, surprisingly, had offered to handle fundraising and public relations. Her sister was different now. Quieter. The divorce had been brutal. Richard trying to claim Vanessa had been complicit. Vanessa's lawyers burying him with evidence of her cooperation. She'd lost friends, lost her social circle, lost the life she'd built on Richard's money. But she'd found something else. Purpose, maybe. Or just the beginnings of redemption. I can't undo what I ignored, Vanessa had said last month, over coffee in Alara's apartment. Can't change that I chose him over you, over Dad. But I can spend the rest of my life doing better. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a path toward it. The foundation's opening gala was scheduled for mid-October, exactly 1 year after Vanessa's wedding, exactly 1 year after everything had changed. The Grand Meridian had offered the ballroom for free. The same space where Richard had been arrested was now decorated with banners showing the foundation's mission: justice, healing, hope. 300 guests attended. Politicians trying to distance themselves from the scandal. Philanthropists drawn by the publicity. Journalists covering the feel-good redemption story and survivors. Dozens of women Alara's father had helped extract over the years, now free, now safe, now present to celebrate. Yana was there, wearing a simple blue dress, her smile tentative but real. She'd testified against the Volkovs, helped identify other trafficking routes. She was in witness protection now, but she'd begged to attend tonight, to see what her courage had helped create. Alara gave the opening speech from a podium adjusted for her wheelchair. She talked about her father's bravery, about the women who'd survived unimaginable horrors, about the long road of healing ahead. She didn't mention Dominic, Vero. But when the press asked, and they always asked, she said simply, "The Foundation's anonymous founding donor believed that privilege comes with responsibility, that those who have power should use it to protect those who don't. I hope we honor that belief every day." After the speeches, after the applause, after the guests had filtered to the reception area, Alara sat in a quiet corner and let herself breathe. "You did good, sweetheart." Her father sat beside her, looking older but lighter somehow. As if 3 years of hiding had been a weight he'd finally set down. "Your mother would be proud." Her mother, who died 2 months ago, cancer that had been growing silently for years. She'd lived long enough to see David alive, to reconcile with both daughters, to understand what Richard had done. It wasn't enough time, but it was something. "I miss her," Alara said quietly. "Me too." David squeezed her hand. "But she got to see this. Got to know that something good came from all that pain. That matters." Vanessa approached, slightly awkward in her new role as development director. "Alara? There's someone asking for you. Wouldn't give a name, just said you'd want to speak with him." Alara's heart jumped. "Where?" "Garden Terrace." She wheeled outside, hope and fear warring in her chest. The terrace was empty except for one figure standing by the railing, looking out at the Atlantic City skyline. Not Dominic. A younger man, maybe 30, in a simple suit. He turned, smiled. "Miss Mitchell. My name is James Ortiz. I worked for Mr. Vero." He pulled an envelope from his pocket. "He asked me to give you this. Tonight, specifically. On the Foundation's opening." Alara's hands shook as she took it. Inside was a cashier's check. Not to her, to the Vero Foundation for Rehabilitation and Justice. $20 million. And a note in handwriting she recognized. "You asked me once why I cared about your father's case. The truth is Catherine would have cared. She always saw people others overlooked. You reminded me how to see that way again. This foundation will save lives. Change lives. That's worth more than any empire I built. I can't come back, not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm watching. I'm proud of you. And Alara? Keep practicing those steps. I have a feeling you'll be dancing under your own power soon. When you do, save me one. Always, D." Tears blurred her vision. She looked up at James. Is he safe?" James smiled slightly. "Mr. Vero is very good at being exactly where he needs to be. And right now, he needs to be far from anyone the Volkovs might use to get to him." He paused. "But he checks in. Asks about you. About the Foundation. About whether you're still doing physical therapy. Tell him." Alara's voice cracked. "Tell him thank you. For everything." "I will." James nodded respectfully and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Alara sat alone on the terrace, holding the note, looking at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Dominic Vero was alive. Watching. Waiting. And someday, maybe, they'd finish that dance. But for now, she had work to do. Lives to change. A foundation to build. A sister to forgive. A father to cherish while she still could. The girl who'd been invisible at her sister's wedding was invisible no longer. She'd been seen, been heard, been believed. And that, she realized, was its own kind of freedom. 1 year later, the Vero Foundation's first annual charity ball was everything the opening gala hadn't been. Intimate, elegant, focused on the survivors rather than the spectacle. Only 100 guests, each personally invited. No press. No politicians seeking photo opportunities. Just people who believed in the mission. Alara adjusted the supportive braces hidden beneath her floor-length emerald dress. She'd been working with Dr. Patel for 18 months now. The braces were lighter, more sophisticated. She could walk, slowly, carefully, but genuinely walk, for almost an hour before exhaustion set in. Tonight would be her debut. No wheelchair waiting in the wings. Just her, on her own 2 feet, for as long as they held. "You ready?" Her father appeared beside her, offering his arm. He looked good, healthier than he had in years. He'd started teaching forensic accounting at Rutgers, mentoring students who wanted to use financial skills for justice rather than profit. Terrified, Alara admitted. What if I fall? Then you fall. And you get back up. Same as always, he smiled. Your mother used to say the bravest thing you can do is show people your vulnerability. You've been doing that for 2 years now. Tonight's just more of the same. The ballroom doors opened. The string quartet began playing, not the Blue Danube this time. Something newer, lighter, hopeful. Alara walked in on her father's arm. Every head turned. Gasps rippled through the crowd, not pitying this time.
Awed.
Yana stood near the front, tears streaming down her face, clapping. Vanessa clutched their father's old investigator's notebook. She'd been reading it lately, trying to understand the man she'd failed to believe. Alara made it to the center of the room. Her legs trembled, but held. She gave her speech, brief, heartfelt. Talked about the Foundation's first year. 32 women extracted from trafficking situations. 17 families reunited. 5 major investigations launched into corporate corruption. It wasn't enough. Would never be enough. But it was a start. This foundation exists because people believed in justice when it wasn't convenient, she said, her voice steady. Because my father refused to look away from evil. Because survivors chose courage over silence. Because one man, her voice caught slightly, taught me that being broken doesn't mean being powerless. Applause washed over her. She smiled, accepting it, then carefully made her way to a chair at the side. Her legs needed rest. That was okay. She'd proven what she needed to prove. The orchestra began the dancing portion of the evening. Couples filtered onto the floor. Alara watched them, content. This was her victory, not walking, not standing, but building something that mattered. Creating light from darkness. You lead this time. The voice came from directly behind her. Alara's heart stopped. She turned, slowly, carefully, not trusting her legs to move quickly. Dominic Vero stood there. He looked different. Thinner, beard touched with more silver. Wearing a simple dark suit instead of custom tailoring. But his eyes, those were the same. Dark, intense, alive with something that made her breath catch. You're here, she whispered. The Volkov leadership was arrested 3 months ago. International sting operation, 19 countries involved. The last of them went down in Moscow last week. He stepped closer. I'm not a threat to anyone anymore. Just a man who's very, very late to a dance. Tears blurred Alara's vision. You disappeared.
For a year.
No word, no contact except through James. I know, pain flickered across his face. I needed to make sure you were safe. That the Foundation was protected. That my past couldn't touch your future, he extended his hand. But I've spent 18 months learning to live without constantly looking over my shoulder. Catherine would have told me I was being an idiot. That life isn't about safety. It's about showing up for people who matter. And I matter? Her voice was barely audible. You matter more than anything. He moved closer, his voice dropping to intimacy. I watched you rebuild yourself. Watched you create something beautiful from all that pain. Watched you walk into this room tonight like you were conquering the world. His eyes were wet. You taught me what real strength looks like, Alara. Not power. Not control. Just refusing to let darkness win. The orchestra swelled into a waltz. The same piece from Vanessa's wedding, their first dance. Dominic's hand was still extended. So, I'm asking again. May I have this dance? Alara stood, slowly, using the chair for support, then straightening. Her legs shook slightly. The braces hummed, almost inaudible, providing stability. She took his hand. Yes. He pulled her close, not holding her up, not supporting her weight, just partnering with her. They moved onto the floor together, and this time she led. Slow steps, careful and deliberate. Not graceful, not perfect, but hers. Around them, the crowd fell silent. Watching, witnessing. You taught me to fight, Alara whispered against his shoulder. No, Dominic replied softly, his breath warm against her ear. You taught me to stop. They waltzed, two broken people who'd learned that broken could still be beautiful. That survival could become something more. That darkness, no matter how deep, couldn't extinguish light that burned this bright. When the music ended, Dominic didn't let go.
Neither did she. Stay, she said.
Not a question. A hope. He smiled, genuine, unguarded. As long as you'll have me. The camera in Alara's mind panned out. The ballroom filled with survivors and believers, her father smiling through tears, Vanessa watching with complicated hope. And at the center, two people who'd found each other in the worst moment and chosen to build something impossibly good. The once forgotten woman, now the architect of her own world. The once ruthless man, now learning what it meant to be gentle.
Dancing.
Together. Home.
The end.